The first thing being that she attended an Old South party. So basically what this means is that Rachael and her sorority attended a party at an antebellum era home, or also known as a plantation home. Hey cuties, and welcome back to my channel for another video. If you want to join the cuties fam, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button, the like button, and the little bell icon to get notified when I make new videos. All my socials will be linked down below, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Cameo, Patreon, my Discord, my podcast, which has 2 episodes out already. So if you haven't already, go check out my podcast. Before we jump into this video, I want to give a big shout out to some of my patrons. I might have shouted you out last video, Melanie, but I don't remember, so I'm going to give you a second shout out just because you're awesome. Shout out to Melanie Van Hook, shout out to Al Lewinton, and shout out to Aaron Grobis. Thank you for supporting me in this extra special way. You have no idea how much it means to me. Thank you, and I love you so much. Now, let's get into the video. So during the winter and spring of last year, I went back and watched like every single Bachelor and Bachelorette season back to back because I was avoiding my schoolwork at the time. But I got really caught up in all of, the Bachelor Nation drama. And don't get me wrong, like I love reality TV shows and it gives me the drama that I need to get through my days. But that does not mean that all reality TV shows are ethical in their practices. And that's also not to say that these shows aren't incredibly manipulative and will do just about anything to make the show more intriguing to viewers, even if that means doing horrible things to the cast members. Because producers of these reality shows will sometimes completely ruin people's lives, ruin their mental health just to get a juicy clip for their show. But anyways, knowing all this, we can see how everyone, especially the people in Bachelor Nation, have become so good at manipulating things in order to get what they want, or to show people a version of them that they want. Especially Chris Harrison. I mean, he has been the host of The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and all of its spin-off shows for like decades now. He knows exactly what to do and say to keep his franchise in good lighting. Well, that is, up until he was recently confronted with one of his contestants' racist pasts, and he started trying to defend her. But before we get into that, we have to explain who this contestant is and why this has brought about so much outrage. So the contestant's name is Rachael Kirkconnell. Now, obviously, Rachael was a Bachelor Nation favorite from the get-go. I mean, she was beautiful, she seemed to stay out of drama, she was nice and humble, and Matt seemed to really like her right off the bat. She was the first person that Matt told that he was falling for. So of course, first off the bat, Bachelor Nation is already rooting for this girl. So obviously, people really loved her, and they started looking her up online. They started searching up her social medias, wanting to follow her. She already has like 400,000 followers now since she started on The Bachelor. And as people began searching her up, they started finding more and more disturbing stuff. Now, from what I've heard about The Bachelor, producers do a deep dive into your life before you go onto the show. Like, they get so close with you to the point where they're almost like your best friend before going onto the show. Like, your producer is like your person, your only real contact, and they learn so much about you. They learn so much about your past, about your life, who you are as a person. They know exactly what situations to put you in to make you cry. They know so much about you. So it's very strange to me that the producers, like, didn't know any of this stuff about Rachael, or at least like screen her for a lot of this stuff. Like, especially on such a historic season of The Bachelor, like this is the first time there has ever been a Black Bachelor, and this has been the most diverse group of women on the show as well. So I just can't understand how like you could let that slide, just blatant like racist acts and blatant like racial insensitivity and stuff when you're gonna have the most diverse cast in the history of Bachelor Nation and also a Black Bachelor. I just don't see how you can let that slide. Like, they really should have done more screening. What I'm worried about right now is, like, right now we know that she's going to hometowns. I'm really worried that she's going to win in the end, that Matt is going to propose to her. People were already incredibly worried that he was going to end up with a white girl, and not to be like rude or like, like he can't pick a white girl kind of thing, but it's just when you finally have a Black Bachelor after season upon season of only white men, it's widely known that a Black woman has never like won The Bachelor or been proposed to in the end. So it's just your like first Black Bachelor, and like he made a comment in the first episode that was like kind of iffy about like I'm worried people will judge me if I pick a certain race over another. And it was just like, oh, dude, like, do you have a preference for white women? And you're just not telling us, you know what I mean? Because I think, I don't know, it's such a historic season, and it's just upsetting to see, like, white girl after white girl win each season of The Bachelor, when these, like, beautiful black women come on with amazing education and amazing personalities, and you're like, what are you missing here? Like, these are awesome women. So I think people were, like, a little bit worried about him picking a white girl in general, but, like, a racist white girl on top of that, that's not a good look for the show. But for Chris Herron to be defending Rachael on, like, the talk shows he's been going on makes it really sus, because I feel like she has to be the final rose winner for him to be defending her this hard. If she was just some random girl who got voted off in a random season, he wouldn't be defending her this hard, I feel like. But that's just speculation again. I don't know, but it just, I have that feeling inside of me that she wins in the end. But anyways, let's deep dive into what people found out about Rachael. I bought myself an iPad. Look at how cute this is with a little pen. And I've literally collected all of the, like, information I could about her. So we're going to go through it piece by piece. The first thing being that she attended an Old South party. So basically what this means is that Rachael and her sorority attended a party at an antebellum era home, or also known as a plantation home. A plantation in the Old South was like a big plot of land with, like, a big house where slave masters, white slave masters, would keep their slaves and have them do labor. Now, Rachael and her sorority attended this party at the plantation home, where they dressed up in antebellum era outfits to commemorate the good old days of the South. Now, usually at these parties, the women will dress in those hula hoop dresses, you know, the kind of old Southern Belle antebellum era dresses. These were usually outfits that the slave owners' wives would wear, and the men would typically dress as slave masters with top hats and petticoats and suspenders or whatever. Now, these Old South parties had actually been nationally banned by the organization. But of course, Rachael's sorority, who is widely known for being incredibly racist, had the party in secret. Apparently, these parties were very exclusive, and it was an incredibly big honor to be invited to one. But my problem is, some people look at this party and say that it was just a party. They were just celebrating the old-fashioned styles of the South and whatever. But my question is, how do you celebrate that time period without at the same time celebrating slavery? Because slavery is deeply intertwined with that time period. So in order to celebrate the antebellum era, it is almost impossible to strip away the slavery part. You cannot celebrate those people and that time period without also celebrating the slavery and degradation of Black people. Like, I definitely think it would be weird for people to be celebrating the era of Nazi Germany, because you would also be celebrating the things that happened during that time. It just doesn't make sense to celebrate a time period where there was atrocities happening and to just try to strip away the atrocities and keep the rest of the, you know, aesthetically pleasing things. So yeah, attending a party that kind of glamorizes the era of slavery in America, not a cute look. Not a cute look at all. And I'd go so far to say is that's literally racist. The next stop on the Rachael train is her liking insensitive photos. Now, this on its own, I don't see as that big of a problem, because to me, this is like being canceled by association. Liking a photo to me means almost nothing, unless the photo literally said like if you're a racist or like if you're a Trump supporter or something along those lines. But a like on Instagram or another social media site could literally just be an accident. And I'm not saying that her liking these were an accident, but to cancel someone just on the basis of them like liking a photo doesn't make any sense, because there's a lot of people like myself who literally just scroll through Instagram and like photos and don't even really look or read the caption or anything. So it could easily be racked up to like a mistake or a lapse in judgment or something like that. So if it was just these on their own, I would think, wow, okay, that's a bit cancel culture-y, like this is toxic. But I think when you look at this whole thing as like a bigger picture, you see that that fits into a much larger photo, right? It's not these things as a singular event. It's, you know, everything put together gives you a bigger picture on who she is as a person. So she liked a photo first of a bunch of white girls dressed up as Mexicans, very like stereotypical, obviously. Then she liked a photo of her two white friends with a Confederate flag in the background. And she also liked a photo of one of her friends who had a MAGA hat on. And there was also two photos that were fairly recent where she was dressed up as a Native American with like a traditional indigenous headdress and outfit or whatever. And there was another photo of her with a bunch of friends who were also dressed in those outfits. And I think she might have been dressed as a traveler or some sort of thing. And it was posted fairly recently. She's only 24 years old, and this all was from when she was in college. So it's painting a very bad picture of her very recently. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, this was actually the first thing I saw about her where I was like, oh, that's sus. But I'm going to take that with a grain of salt because it feels like just people on the internet talking shit. But basically, someone posted a TikTok of Rachael first meeting Matt on The Bachelor, and it said, "Girly, remember when you bullied me in high school for liking black guys?" So there was this rumor going around that Rachael used to bully girls in high school for liking black guys or wanting to date black guys, which is obviously like very starkly racist. So I took the post with a grain of salt, but then I started seeing a bunch of other girls coming out with similar stories. So this one says, "I was in her GCSU, basically an all-white college, and she was openly racist towards black people. I remember her making remarks when they were trying to get into bars in Milledgeville about how their kind isn't allowed. She bullied half her pledge class, and a girl literally ended up dropping out because of her. I was so close to posting my own video about her because I hate the fact she represented a school I went to. Unfortunately, she hasn't changed. Her and her friend group were a big reason I had to transfer schools. Thank you for making this issue come to light." Another message read, "Your videos about Rachael are so accurate. Oh my god, my sister was dating a guy and he cheated on her with Rachael in my sister's bed. So clearly she is not the person she is saying she is on TV. Her friend group is totally jumping on you to make her seem like the innocent person when she isn't. It's just for TV, laugh my ass off." Another message read, "Hey girl, I saw that TikTok drama and oh my god, I'm so here for it. Don't let these girls drag you down. Literally, they are so mean and still to this day are mean. They literally attacked the hell out of me in high school and I know I'm not the only one. Seriously, stay strong and keep doing you, to hell with them." Another message read, "Hey girl, I live in Cumming also and can back you up 100%. My boyfriend actually went to middle school with Rachael. For lack of a better term, the popular kids over here always have been super racist. The way racism is so normalized over here is hella gross. And my high school experience was watching racist, misogynistic, offensive behavior in the popular crowd be accepted by students and teachers. It deeply affected me how racist this town is and how acceptable it is for people to behave that way. It seems 100% on brand for Forsyth County, and I believe you entirely." And another message read, "She will never change. She will just learn new ways of hiding who she really is to benefit her. Thanks for posting." Once I started seeing all of those, it kind of seems like it's consistent with the story that was being told. Of course, we weren't there, but I think we can assume that something fishy was going on with her and a lot of racism. Now, what they were mentioning about the town was very interesting. So she lives in Forsyth County, Georgia, and that is known as an incredibly racist place. There's even an article if you want to read about it. It's called "The Racial Cleansing That Drove 1,100 Black Residents Out of Forsyth County." So when people went on her Instagram, when they were searching her up, she had one of her story highlights had a bunch of things in it. So people found story highlights where she had reposted PragerU stuff. If you don't know what PragerU is, it's basically an online university with no credibility that is incredibly far right and basically preaches QAnon conspiracies and misinformation and literal fake news. So she posts two things, a fact sheet for PragerU, which at the bottom says how Save the Children is keeping QAnon alive and a bunch of QAnon shit. And at the bottom of this, it says that PragerU videos spread anti-Muslim rhetoric and conspiracy theories and a bunch of other things like that. So clearly this is the stuff she supports. Very interesting to me. And her Instagram was also full of pro-police stuff. So I think we're already getting a feel of what her parents are like. But let's talk about her parents for a second. So the first thing that people found out about her mom, first of all, her initials are literal. Can we look at her initials? I'm going to put the picture up here. Let's just look at her initials. That's all I need to know, really. You don't need to wear a white sheet and a hood in order for me to know what you are, miss. But from her posts on Facebook, clearly she supports white Christian nationalists. And her husband, Rachel's dad, he makes fun of immigrants, makes a bunch of comments about how he loves Fox News and all of this stupid shit. And apparently he donated a lot of money to WinRed, which WinRed is the official secure payments technology designed to help the Republican candidates and committees win across the US. So he was donating a lot to the Trump campaign and a bunch of other Republican campaigns. So clearly we know where they lie. So then, in the midst of all of this coming to light, Chris Harrison went on a talk show on Extra with Rachel Lindsay, the first Black Bachelorette, and they discussed the situation, and this is why people were really outraged with Chris Harrison, because he said some stupid ass shit.
What are your thoughts about Rachael Kirkconnell and the allegations attached to her?
A couple of things. First and foremost, I don't know. I haven't talked to Rachael about it. And this is, again, where we all need to have a little grace, a little understanding, a little compassion, because I've seen some stuff online. Again, this judge, jury, executioner thing, where people are just tearing this girl's life apart and diving into like her parents voting record. And what it's unbelievably alarming to watch this. I haven't heard Rachael speak on this yet. And until I actually hear this woman have a chance to speak, who am I to say any of this? I saw a picture of her at a sorority party 5 years ago, and that's it. Like, boom, like, okay, well, this girl is in this book now, and she's now in this group. And I'm like, really? Okay, well, there goes.
The picture was from 2018 at an old South antebellum party. So I think, when you it's
when
not,
you hold that
that's not
under
a
the
good
lens.
look. It's not a good look.
No, it's not a good. Well, Rachel, is it a good look in 2018 or is it not a good look in 2021?
It's not a good look ever, because she's celebrating the old South. If I went to that party, what would I represent at that party?
I don't disagree with you. You're 100% right in 2021. That was not the case in 2018. Again, I'm not defending Rachel. I just know that, I don't know, 50 million people did that in 2018 between, it's like that was a type of party that a lot of people went to. Again, I'm not defending it. I didn't go to it. We are not looking under the same lens. And that is, again, the grace and compassion and understanding. With this girl, I don't know how old she would have been back then, have thought, historically, this mansion stood for this. Guys, it's not really that woke that we're here. We need to have the understanding and the compassion of this history and what this stood for and what these people who own this mansion stood for. My guess, these girls got dressed up and went to a party and had a great time. They were 18 years old. Now, does that make it okay? I don't know, Rachel. You tell me. But where is this lens we're holding up? And was that lens available? And were we all looking through it in 2018? I don't know. I don't have these answers.
I think that's the problem is we weren't, you're right, we weren't looking through those lenses, and we should have been.
And I love what Rachael said here, because she said, if I went to that party, what would I represent here? And I think that should have been like an awakening moment for Chris, because when she said that, I was like, that's a whole nother level I didn't even think about. Like, well, I mean, they were all white, but if someone was black, like, what would they represent at that party? If you wanted to make a true period piece, the black person would have been the slave. And that to me is so disgusting, that you could be celebrating a party where the place of black people in that party would have been slaves. Did none of them think about that? Because if this was really ignorance, did you just let that whole thing slide? I don't understand that. So my first problem with Chris is that he literally went on to say, that's not a good look today in 2021, but it didn't seem bad back then. Rachael said it here, and it's just, it was never a good look. Racism was never a cute look. And I understand that for a lot of people, we didn't have these conversations surrounding racism as much like when I was younger. When I was in high school, there was a lot of racial insensitivity. There was a lot of things that people used to say and do, which we would call out today. That does not mean that they were okay back then. We didn't have the education or the conversations, because they were still taboo back then, to actually address what was going on. But now we do. Now we understand racism on a much wider scale level, and now the conversations are starting so much younger. She wasn't really young when a lot of this happened. She was in college. As much as I think that, yeah, back then we weren't having these conversations about racism or the N-word as much as we do now, I do think it's important to address that she was in college. It's pretty easy to point out that a slavery party is wrong. Now, there's some people who get called out for smaller things that it's like, okay, maybe the education really wasn't as good back then on this type of stuff, but when you're looking at something as big as literally an antebellum era party, bring back the old South, bitch. Come on now. Come on, we all know what that means. We all know what the Old South is. Deeply intertwined with slavery, and there's no way you can separate the two. You can't just celebrate the slave masters and the slave masters' wives without also celebrating the slavery. Like, literally, 2018 was not that long ago. Maybe back when you were in high school, it wasn't as acceptable to have conversations surrounding racism and sexism and ableism and misogyny and stuff like that. It was more taboo to talk about those subjects when I was younger. But we're having these conversations now. To think that in 2018, she's 24 now, she was probably like 20, 21. At 20, 21 years old, you should know better than participating in racist events. It's just insane how much white people can get away with doing under the guise of like, it was a joke or it was just a party. But it's just a joke to who? That's my question. It wasn't racist to who? Because it was still racist to the people of color. Those parties were still racist back then as they are now. Just because you didn't understand it was racist doesn't mean it wasn't. And, I've learned that from things that I used to say and do when I was younger. You grow up conditioned by society, but you educate yourself. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that, we learn growing up that we have to unlearn when we're older. And, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've said things that are racially insensitive before. I've said and done things that I'm not proud of. But the important thing is you want to be educated. You want to work towards being different. You want to be a better person. You want to be able to be an ally to Black people, an ally to women, an ally to the gay community, an ally to disabled people, an ally to trans people. Like, you want to work towards becoming more educated. So the excuse of, oh, she was young and we didn't understand back then really doesn't hold up here. And also, it's not an excuse. It can be an explanation of why you were ignorant but it's not an excuse. We always need to take accountability for the actions we've done in the past, even if they don't represent who we are now. It was still something we did that hurt people, and we always need to take accountability for that and move forward into being a better person and educate ourselves.
I look at Hannah being what she did. I look at people that have made mistakes. Again, I am not the woke police. There's plenty of people who will do that for us in this world right now. I don't know. Like, do you go tear all those places down and tear up the dirt and dig deep enough that it erases it? I don't know. When you see San Francisco erasing Lincoln and erasing Washington and erasing people because of what they stood for 180 years ago, I don't know. Is that right? Is it wrong? The woke police is out there, and this poor girl Rachael, who has just been thrown to the lions. I don't know how you are equipped when you have never done this before to be woke enough, to be eloquent enough, to be ready to handle this. And my guess is this woman needs a little time. And this is, again, what we didn't give Hannah. It's what we didn't give anybody. We don't give people time to have some perspective, to try and drink this in for a second, see how this affects their life, and then speak on it. She will speak, my guess. And when she does, I'm going to hear her out. And if I disagree with her, if you disagree with her, then we can have our say. But I'm not sure why we were in such a hurry to throw this for one.
It's been 6 weeks. We've known about these allegations have been attached to Rachael since Matt's season started, which was in January.
But when do you jump in? When is the time? And who is Rachael Lindsay? And who is Chris Harrison? And who is whatever woke police person out there? Who are you? And that's I've heard this a lot of, like, I think she should. I think he should. Who the hell are you? Who are you that you demand it?
Okay, so another thing is that Chris Harrison keeps using terms like woke and, the woke police. And this is clearly someone to me who's dismissing people's feelings because he feels as though it's cancel culture doing its job. Whereas though I think some outrage goes too far. Obviously, I think cancel culture is toxic. When I think there are actual people with valid concerns and you're just calling them, oh, the woke police. Like, it's basically saying that, like, oh, Black people can't state their opinion and state that they've been offended and hurt by someone's actions without them coming off as, angry and aggressive and the woke police and they're just mad about anything. That's not how it works. These are people with valid criticisms to something that someone did that was harmful. And I think those should always be taken into consideration and not dismissed as if you're invalidating their experiences or their feelings. And that's unacceptable. Another thing that I find really upsetting about this, although I do agree with Chris Harrison that someone doesn't need to give an apology right away, I always think apologies that happen quickly are always disingenuous. And did the person really learn anything? I think we do need to give people some time to sit back and reflect and to educate themselves and learn. And I think that's what Hannah B did after her whole situation. But I think it gets to a point where it's gone on too long and you need to say something, at least that, hey, I'm going to be saying something too. I'm reflecting right now or whatever, or put a post out like alluding to there will be an apology coming and I'm going to speak out soon. I just need time to educate myself and reflect. I do think there's a problem with public figures only apologizing because they're being called out instead of actually recognizing what they did was harmful and wrong and apologizing out of their own heart because they feel bad that they hurt people, not because they want to save face or make people like them again or whatever. But something that Chris Harrison says is that we need to give her grace. We're not extending grace to her. What about all the Black people that you're dismissing so easily? Where is the grace that you're extending to them? That's my question. Where is the grace that you're extending to people who have been hurt and who are clearly outraged and upset? But no, everyone must extend the grace to the girl who did something wrong, right? That's not how this works. And that's like the rhetoric he's using in this comes off as very racist, very dismissive of Black people's feelings. It feels as almost like he's gaslighting the Black community into being like, calm down, let's give her grace for all of her racist stuff. She didn't know back then. It was only 2018, like a few years ago, like it wasn't like it was 10 years ago or she was in high school or she was a kid. It's very recent. And I think that is worthy of owning up to and apologizing for. And whether people want to accept her apology. So Chris Harrison issued an apology after this because obviously he was getting an incredible amount of backlash. He said, "To my Bachelor Nation family, I will always own up to a mistake when I make one. So I'm here to extend a sincere apology. I have this incredible platform to speak about love, and yesterday I took a stance on topics to which I should have been better informed. While I do not speak for Rachael, my intentions were simply to ask for grace in offering her an opportunity to speak on her own behalf. What I now realize I have done is cause harm by wrongly speaking in a manner that perpetuates racism, and for that I am deeply sorry. I also apologize to my friend Rachael Lindsay for not listening to her better on a topic she has a first-hand understanding of, and humbly thank the members of Bachelor Nation who have reached out to me to hold me accountable. I promise to do better." And then Piper James from this past season, who just got sent home. Oh, I fucking loved Piper. Oh, I was so sad when she got sent home. "Black women in this franchise must always be hyper aware of our grace because no one is extending it to us." And that's exactly what I was just saying. Nobody is extending grace to these Black Black women, and that's what's upsetting. So then Chris made his apology, and I'll read Rachel's apology that she just posted the other day on February 11th. She said, "While there have been rumors circulating, there have also been truths that have come to light and I need to address. I hear you, and I'm here to say I was wrong. At one point, I didn't recognize how offensive and racist my actions were, but that doesn't excuse them. My age or when it happened does not excuse anything. They are not acceptable or okay in any sense. I was ignorant, but my ignorance was racist. I am sorry to the communities and individuals that my actions harmed and offended. I'm ashamed about my lack of education, but it is no one's responsibility to educate me. I am learning and will continue to learn how to be anti-racist because it's important to speak up in the moment and not after you're called out. If you are a person who doesn't understand the offense in question, I urge you to learn from my mistakes and encourage you to use them as a teachable moment. As for my family, I love them and how they raised me to be my own individual. They have always encouraged me to have my own views, opinions, and beliefs. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I couldn't help but think about how sick people must be of reading these kinds of statements, how a person didn't realize the trauma that their actions would inflict on other people. It must get so exhausting. I want to put my energy towards preventing people from making the same offensive mistakes that I made in the first place, and I hope I can prove this to you moving forward. Racial progress and unity are impossible without white accountability, and I deserve to be held accountable for my actions. I will never grow unless I recognize what I have done is wrong. I don't think one apology means that I deserve your forgiveness, but rather I hope I can earn your forgiveness through my future actions." And I actually don't think that was a horrible apology. I think that was really well written. Now, of course, I don't know if she was working with like a PR team or like people were helping her write the apology. I do think it hit every point you needed to hit, you know, not making any excuses for the actions, holding yourself completely accountable, not asking for forgiveness, saying that, you know, I will show you with my future actions that I'm going to change and educate myself. I think her apology was good. And I like that she didn't use the old ways of like public figures and celebrities and influencers using like a notes app or doing like a stupid video that has a bunch of cuts in it and, you know, you're wearing all white to look pure or whatever. Of course, the apology is not up for me to accept. She even put in the caption, "My statement and apology is for the people of color that I have offended. If you do not identify as Black, Indigenous people of color, then it is not your apology to accept. Please be respectful to those who have been affected." So exactly, it's not my apology to accept, although I do think it was written very well. Of course, I don't know if this actually means she's going to change. I don't know if this was a disingenuous apology. Again, we will see that with her actions moving forward. It's hard for me to believe that someone who is this ingrained in this sort of culture in the Deep South can change overnight. This stuff is like her parents are hardcore Trump supporters. You know, they support Republican white nationalists and white supremacists. And she was posting PragerU stuff that brainwashes kids into being far right. She was posting pro-police stuff and just the stuff about her bullying people or her friend group bullying people or even people saying that she had said horrible things about Black people. The cultural appropriation, liking insensitive photos, the literal slavery glorification party, all of it coming together is just, I hope she feels kind of like slapped in the face with it all. And I know she said she felt embarrassed. I really, really do hope that she takes this time to educate herself and learn. But anyways, that's all for this video. Let me know what you think down below. Do you like Rachael? Do you accept her apology? If you are a part of the Black community, did you think her apology was good? Did you think it was bad? Did you think that she's just doing it, you know, to save face? Let me know what you think down below. Let me know what your predictions are for the next upcoming episodes of The Bachelor. That's all I have to say for this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below because you know I appreciate that so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.